The day started like any other school day. The sky was gray, and the air felt heavy, the kind that made the morning feel slower than usual. Students walked through the front gates in small groups, laughing, talking, or staring at their phones. Some rushed because they were late. Others moved slowly, already tired before the day had even begun. Among them was a black girl who walked alone. She carried her backpack close to her body, both straps over her shoulders, her head slightly down. She wasn't shy by nature, but school had taught her to be careful, to keep her voice low, to take up as little space as possible. She had learned that standing out, even by accident, could invite trouble. She had learned this lesson early. Her shoes squeaked softly against the hallway floor as she entered the building. Lockers slammed open and shut around her. The noise was loud, but no one paid attention to her. Teachers stood near classroom doors, reminding students to hurry up. The smell of cleaning spray mixed with cheap perfume and cafeteria food. She liked the first few minutes of the day. Before things could go wrong, before someone noticed her. Her first class went by quietly. She answered a question when called on, took notes, and kept her eyes on her paper. No one bothered her there. That class was safe. Most days were not terrible. Most days were just uncomfortable. But she never knew when a bad day would suddenly turn worse. Between second and third period, the hallways filled fast. Students poured out of classrooms, pushing past each other, laughing, shouting, calling names. The noise grew louder, echoing off the walls. She adjusted her backpack and stepped into the flow of students, trying to reach her next class before the hallway became too crowded. That was when she heard it. A voice behind her, loud, mocking. She didn't turn around. She knew better. Another voice joined in, then another. Laughter followed. She felt her stomach tighten. Her steps slowed without her meaning to. She focused on the floor in front of her, counting her steps, telling herself to keep moving. She had heard those voices before. They weren't always loud. Sometimes they whispered when teachers were near. Sometimes they made jokes that sounded harmless if you didn't know the meaning behind them. Sometimes they just stared. Today, they weren't whispering. Why are you walking like that? One voice said. More laughter. She kept walking. Hey, we're talking to you. She didn't respond. Her heart started to beat faster. She could feel it in her ears. Someone stepped closer behind her. She felt a presence, too close, invading her space. She tried to move to the side, but the hallway was packed. Students bumped into her from every direction. She lost her balance for a second and caught herself. The laughter grew louder. She heard someone say something cruel, something meant to embarrass her. A few students nearby slowed down, curious. Others pretended not to hear. Phones stayed in hands, eyes stayed forward. She wanted to disappear. She thought about speaking up, about telling them to stop. But past experience had taught her that words didn't always help. Sometimes they made things worse. She tried to push forward again. That was when it happened. A hard shove from behind. She didn't see it coming. Her foot caught on someone else's shoe. And suddenly the floor rushed up toward her. Her hands hit first. Her knees followed. Pain shot through her palms. Her backpack slid off her shoulders and landed beside her. The hallway went quiet for half a second. Then came the laughter. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. She stayed on the floor longer than she needed to. Not because she couldn't stand, but because she didn't want to be seen. Her face burned. Her chest felt tight. She stared at the shiny floor, at the scuff marks and footprints, and wished she could melt into it. Someone said, "Get up." Another voice added a joke. She pushed herself up slowly. Her hands stung. One knee throbbed. She reached for her backpack with shaking fingers. No teacher was nearby. A few students walked around, like she was an obstacle. Others stared openly. Some looked uncomfortable, then looked away. She stood up, keeping her eyes down, brushing off her pants even though it didn't help much. Her throat felt tight, like if she spoke, something would break. The bell rang. Just like that. The moment was over for everyone else. Students rushed to class, eager not to be late. The bullies blended back into the crowd, still laughing, still confident. The hallway emptied quickly. She walked to her next class on legs that felt weak. She made it to her seat just as the teacher closed the door. No one asked if she was okay. The teacher started the lesson like nothing had happened. She stared at her desk, her hands resting flat, so no one would see them shaking. She told herself to breathe. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. She had reported things before. The comments, the pushing, the looks. Sometimes adults listened. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the bullies stopped for a while, then started again. She had learned to survive by staying quiet. But not everyone had forgotten what they saw in that hallway. At the far end, near the lockers, another student had stood still while everyone else moved. A white girl, holding her books too tightly, her face pale with shock. She hadn't laughed. She hadn't pulled out her phone. She hadn't walked away right away either. She had seen the shove. Clear as day. She had seen the girl hit the floor, and she had felt something twist deep in her chest. She told herself it wasn't her business. That teachers would handle it. That getting involved would only cause trouble. But as she walked to class, she kept replaying the moment in her mind. The look on the girl's face, the sound of laughter, the silence of everyone else. She sat down at her desk, but she couldn't focus. The teacher's voice sounded distant. Her pen hovered above her notebook, unmoving. She wondered how many times that girl had walked those halls feeling unsafe. How many times she had been told, without words, that she didn't matter. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 10 minutes passed, and the feeling didn't go away. Not yet. The rest of the day felt longer than usual for the girl who had fallen in the hallway. Every class blurred into the next. Words on the board didn't stay in her head. When teachers spoke, their voices sounded far away, like they were coming from the end of a tunnel. She kept her hands under her desk, so no one would notice the red marks on her palms. Her knee ached whenever she moved it, but she didn't tell anyone. She had learned that drawing attention often led to more questions than help. At lunch, she didn't go to the cafeteria. She never did on days like this. The cafeteria was loud, crowded, and full of eyes. Instead, she walked to a quiet corner near the library, sat on a bench, and pulled out the small lunch she had packed. She ate slowly, not because she was hungry, but because she didn't want to go back into the hallways yet. She kept thinking about the moment she fell. Not the pain, but the sound, the laughter, the way people had watched and then looked away. She told herself to be strong. She told herself this was almost over. Just a few more classes. Across the building, the white girl who had seen everything sat at a different lunch table, untouched food in front of her. Her friends talked about homework and weekend plans, but she barely listened. Her mind was still stuck in that hallway. She replayed the shove again and again. She had seen bullying before. Everyone had. But this felt different, clearer, crueler. She remembered the way the girl's backpack had slid across the floor, the way no adult had been there, the way the crowd had moved on so quickly. She felt uncomfortable, restless. Her friends noticed. "What's wrong with you today?" One of them asked. She shrugged. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. After lunch, the afternoon classes dragged on. In the last period, the teacher gave a group assignment. Students moved their desks together. Voices filled the room. The black girl stayed where she was, pretending to read, hoping no one would force her to join. No one did. She wasn't sure if that was a relief or something worse. The final bell rang at last, sharp and loud. Chairs scraped across the floor as students rushed to pack up. The girl moved carefully, waiting for the room to clear. Before stepping into the hallway, she just wanted to go home. The hallway after school felt different from the morning. Fewer teachers, more noise, more freedom. That also meant fewer rules. She walked fast, keeping close to the wall. She could feel eyes on her, though she didn't know if it was real or just fear. Her shoulders were tight. Every laugh sounded like it was about her. She almost made it to the exit. Then she heard the voices. Again, her stomach dropped. They were louder now, more confident. The kind of confidence that came from knowing no one had stopped them earlier. She slowed down, hoping they would pass her by, hoping she could blend into the crowd. She was wrong. One of them stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Others gathered nearby, not touching her this time, but close enough to make their point. "Watch where you're going," someone said. She didn't respond. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. She stared at the floor, counting her breaths. People walked past. Some glanced over. No one stopped. Across the hallway, the white girl had just stepped out of her classroom. She was laughing at something a friend had said, but the laughter died in her throat when she saw what was happening. She recognized the girl. Instantly, her heart began to pound. She slowed her steps. Her friends kept walking ahead, still talking. She fell behind without meaning to. She told herself to keep moving, to go home, to forget it, but her feet didn't listen. She watched as the group closed in around the girl, not hitting, not pushing, but cornering her, saying things meant to hurt. The white girl felt heat rush to her face. Anger, shame, fear. Thought about all the time she had stayed quiet before. All the time she had said, "It's not my problem." All the time she had hoped someone else would step in. Someone else never did. She looked around for a teacher. None were nearby. Her chest felt tight. She could walk away right now. No one would blame her. No one would even notice. But she noticed. The black girl stood there, silent, trapped, doing everything she could to make herself smaller. The same way she had in the morning. The white girl stopped walking. Her friends turned back, confused. "Are you coming?" One of them asked. She didn't answer. Her heart was racing so fast it scared her. Her hands were shaking. She felt like she might cry or scream or both. She took one step forward, then another. She didn't have a plan. She didn't know what she was going to say. She only knew she couldn't watch again. The crowd shifted slightly as she approached. Some students noticed her coming closer. Phones came out, not recording yet, but ready. The bullies glanced at her. Surprised, she stopped a few feet away. Her voice felt stuck in her throat. For a moment, she almost turned back. Then she thought about the morning, about the laughter, about the silence. She took a deep breath. Leave her alone. The words came out louder than she expected. The hallway went quiet. People stared. The bullies laughed at first, like it was a joke. "This doesn't involve you," one of them said. She swallowed hard, but she didn't move. "It does now," she said. Her legs felt weak, but she planted her feet. She stood between them and the girl. Behind her, the black girl looked up for the first time. Surprise flashed across her face. Then confusion. Then something else. Something like hope, but careful. The white girl could feel eyes on her from every direction. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure others could hear it. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing. She wasn't walking away this time. The hallway stayed quiet, longer than anyone expected. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the building itself was holding its breath. Students stood frozen in place, watching. A few whispered to each other, but no one laughed now. The white girl stood still, her back straight even though her hands were shaking. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Every second felt stretched. She wondered if she had just made the worst mistake of her school life. The group in front of her stared back, surprised more than angry at first. They hadn't expected anyone to step in, especially not someone they didn't know well. "Move," one of them said. She didn't. I said move. She swallowed. Her mouth felt dry, but she stayed where she was. "No," she said. Her voice wasn't loud this time, but it didn't break either. Behind her, the black girl stood frozen. She didn't know what to do. No one had ever done this for her before. She felt exposed, like all the attention was now burning her skin. But she also felt something new, something warm, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Someone was standing with her. Around them, students began pulling out their phones. Not in a loud way. Quietly, carefully. Screens lit up. The mood shifted. The bullies noticed. "This is stupid," one of them muttered. They glanced around, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on them. The white girl felt a rush of fear and relief at the same time. She didn't want this to turn into something worse. She just wanted it to stop. "Just let her go," she said. "This isn't okay." For a moment, it looked like one of them might say something else. Might push past her. Might test her. Then a voice cut through the crowd. "What's going on here?" A teacher had appeared at the end of the hallway. Everything happened fast. After that, students lowered their phones. The bullies stepped back. The tension broke like a snapped string. The white girl finally felt her legs start to shake. The teacher walked closer, eyes sharp, scanning faces. "Why are all of you standing here?" No one answered right away. The black girl stared at the floor. Her chest felt tight. She didn't want to speak. Speaking had never helped before. The white girl took a breath. "They were blocking her," she said, "and saying things." The teacher looked from one face to another. "Office, now." The bullies protested quietly, saying they hadn't done anything. The teacher didn't argue. She pointed down the hall. As they walked away, the crowd slowly began to break apart. Students drifted toward the exits, buzzing with whispers. The hallway emptied. The two girls were left standing there. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The black girl hugged her backpack to her chest. Her hands were still shaking, but she was standing upright now. She finally looked up. "Thank you," she said softly. The white girl nodded, unsure what to say. "I'm sorry it happened," she replied. "I should have said something earlier." The other girl shook her head. "You didn't have to say anything at all." They stood there awkwardly, both unsure how to end the moment. Then the bell rang again, signaling buses and after-school activities. They walked toward the exit together. Not side by side, but close enough. Outside, the air felt cooler. The noise of the school faded behind them. Students scattered toward buses and cars. They stopped near the front steps. "I'm heading that way," the black girl said, pointing down the sidewalk. "Me too," the white girl replied. They walked in silence for a few steps. The white girl finally spoke. "Are you okay?" The question caught her off guard. The black girl thought about it. About the pain in her knee. About the embarrassment. About the fear she felt every day walking those halls. "I will be," she said. The white girl nodded. "If you ever need someone, if it happens again." She trailed off, unsure how to finish. The black girl gave a small smile. It helps knowing someone notices. They reached the corner where their paths split. The white girl hesitated. "See you tomorrow?" The black girl paused, then nodded. "Yeah, see you." They went their separate ways. That evening, the black girl sat on her bed, staring at the wall. Her backpack lay on the floor, still scuffed. She replayed the day in her mind, but the ending felt different now. She wasn't just remembering the fall. She was remembering the moment someone stepped forward. Across town, the white girl sat at the dinner table, barely touching her food. Her parents talked about work and bills, unaware of the storm inside her. She thought about the hallway, about the teacher, about the looks from other students. She wondered if she would be labeled now, if people would treat her differently. The thought scared her, but another thought followed. She had done the right thing. Later that night, both girls lay awake in their own rooms, staring at the ceiling. One wondered if tomorrow would be worse. The other wondered if tomorrow would be better. Neither of them knew yet, but something had changed. Silence had been broken. The next morning, the school felt different. Not louder or quieter, just tense, like everyone knew something had happened but didn't know how to talk about it out loud. Students moved through the halls with the same routines, but their eyes lingered longer than usual. Whispers followed people from locker to locker. The black girl arrived early, hoping to avoid attention. She walked in with her shoulders tight, her backpack held close. Her knee still hurt, but it wasn't the pain she worried about. It was the memory of standing in that hallway while everyone watched. She kept her head down and went to her locker. A few students glanced at her, then quickly looked away. One girl gave her a small nod. Another whispered something to a friend. No one said anything directly. She wasn't sure if that was good or bad. In her first class, she sat near the window like always. The teacher started the lesson, but it felt like the room was waiting for something else to happen. Halfway through, an announcement came over the speaker, asking a few students to report to the office. The names weren't said, but everyone knew who it was about. The room grew quiet. She felt her chest tighten. Even though she hadn't done anything wrong, fear crept in anyway. She wondered if she would be called next, if she would be asked to explain, if she would be believed. Across the building, the white girl walked into school with a knot in her stomach. She had barely slept. Her parents had noticed she was quiet at dinner the night before, but she hadn't told them why. She wasn't sure how to explain it. At her locker, two girls from her class approached her. "Was that you yesterday?" One of them asked. She hesitated. "Yeah, that was brave," the girl said. "I don't think I could have done that." The white girl didn't know how to respond. She didn't feel brave. She still felt scared. Later that morning, a counselor knocked on the classroom door and asked her to step outside. The walk to the office felt long. Her hands were damp. She kept telling herself she had done nothing wrong. Inside the office, the air smelled like coffee and paper. The counselor spoke calmly, asking what she had seen, what she had heard, and why she had stepped in. She answered honestly. "I couldn't just watch," she said. The counselor nodded. Writing things down. In another room, the black girl sat across from an administrator. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, something shifted. She talked about the comments, the pushing, the way it had been happening for a long time. No one interrupted her. That was new. When she finished, her hands were trembling, but her chest felt lighter. Someone had listened all the way through. By lunchtime, the whole school seemed to know that there had been consequences. The bullies weren't in class. Some said they had been sent home. Others said their parents were called. Stories spread fast. Some were true. Some weren't. At lunch, the black girl stood in line, unsure where to sit. She felt exposed, like she was suddenly visible in a way she had never wanted. Then she saw the white girl standing near a table, looking just as unsure. Their eyes met. The white girl lifted her chin slightly. A quiet question. The black girl hesitated, then nodded. They sat together. It wasn't dramatic. They didn't talk much at first. They ate their food and listened to the noise around them. But sitting there felt important. A few students stared. A few whispered. But no one said anything cruel. After lunch, things weren't suddenly perfect. The black girl heard someone mutter something under their breath in the hallway. It wasn't loud enough to repeat, but it was enough to sting. Old habits didn't disappear overnight. The white girl felt the shift too. Some friends acted normal. Others were distant. One girl joked that she had become the hallway hero. The comment didn't feel kind. That afternoon, they walked out of school together again. Not because they planned it, but because it felt easier not to be alone. "I don't like all the looks," the white girl admitted. "Me neither," the black girl said. They both laughed softly. The sound nervous but real. At home, the black girl told her family what had happened. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. Her parent listened closely, anger and concern crossing their face. "You should have told us sooner," they said gently. "I tried," she replied. That night, the white girl finally told her parents too. They were quiet for a moment, then hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you," one of them said. The words stayed with her. The next few days were a mix of progress and discomfort. Teachers seemed more alert in the halls. Announcements were made about kindness and safety. Posters appeared on the walls. Some students rolled their eyes. Others paid attention. The black girl noticed small changes. Fewer comments. More space. Not respect exactly, but less cruelty. The white girl noticed something else. Other students started speaking up in small ways, asking if someone was okay, sitting next to people who were usually alone. One afternoon, a younger student stopped her in the hallway. "Thanks for what you did," they said quietly. She was surprised. "I just did what felt right." "That matters," the student replied. By the end of the week, the tension had eased, but it hadn't disappeared. Both girls knew things could still go wrong. School didn't change overnight, but something important had happened. People were watching now, and sometimes that was enough to make a difference. The weeks that followed did not turn the school into a perfect place. There were still loud hallways, still careless words, still moments that made people uncomfortable. But for the black girl, something inside her had shifted. She still walked the halls carefully, but she no longer felt completely invisible. Teachers greeted her by name more often. A few classmates smiled at her in passing. Small things, but they mattered. Some days were harder than others. On one afternoon, she heard laughter behind her and felt her chest tighten before she even knew why. She stopped for a moment, took a breath, and reminded herself that she was not alone anymore. The white girl noticed the change too. She became more aware of what happened around her. She paid attention to who was left out, who stayed quiet, who walked with their head down. She realized how many things she had ignored before, not because she didn't care, but because it was easier not to see. They didn't become best friends overnight. They were different people with different lives. But they talked more now. Sometimes it was just a few words before class. Sometimes they sat together at lunch. Sometimes they walked home part of the way, sharing small pieces of their day. One afternoon, as they sat on a bench outside the school, the black girl spoke up. "I used to count the days," she said quietly, "just trying to make it through." The white girl nodded. "I didn't know it was that bad." "I didn't think anyone noticed," the other girl replied. They sat in silence for a moment, watching students pass by. "I noticed," the white girl said. "I just waited too long." The black girl looked at her, then shook her head gently. "You showed up when it mattered." Those words stayed with both of them. The school held a meeting not long after. Teachers spoke about respect, about speaking up, about looking out for one another. Some students listened. Some didn't. But the message was out there, said clearly and openly. During the meeting, the black girl sat a little taller. She wasn't hiding anymore. The white girl felt nervous as well. She wondered if people still talked about her behind her back. Sometimes they did. But she also heard something else now. Conversations about fairness, about doing the right thing, One day, she overheard a group of students stop a joke before it went too far. "Don't," one of them said. "It's not funny." She smiled to herself. At home, both girls grew stronger in different ways. The black girl joined an after-school club she had always been curious about but too afraid to try. The first day, she almost turned around at the door. Then she remembered the hallway, the moment someone had stood in front of her, and she stepped inside. The white girl started volunteering with a peer support group. She didn't talk much about what had happened, but her actions showed it. She listened more. She spoke more carefully. One afternoon, a younger student approached the black girl near the lockers. "I like your backpack," the student said shyly. She smiled. "Thank you." It was a simple moment, but it filled her with warmth. Toward the end of the semester, the two girls sat together during a school event. The gym was loud, lights bright, voices echoing. It was the kind of place that used to make the black girl uncomfortable. She stayed anyway. The white girl noticed and leaned over. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said. And this time, she meant it. They watched the event together, laughing at the awkward parts, clapping at the right moments. Later, as they walked out, the black girl stopped. "I never said this," she said, "but that day changed a lot for me." The white girl felt her throat tighten. "It changed me too." They stood there for a moment, not knowing how to end the conversation. "I guess," the black girl said slowly, "sometimes it only takes one person." The white girl nodded. "And sometimes it takes someone brave enough to accept help." The school year moved forward. The incident faded from daily talk, but its impact stayed. The bullies were no longer a constant presence. The halls felt a little safer. Not perfect, but better. On the last day of school, the black girl packed her bag and took one last look at the hallway where it had all started. It didn't scare her anymore. The white girl waited by the doors. "Ready?" she asked. "Yeah," the other girl replied. They stepped outside into the sunlight. They didn't know what the future would bring. New schools, new challenges, new fears. But they knew this. They would not stay silent again. And because of that, neither would many others.